Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
You too.
Let me get it on. I don't know where Lois is, but I want to be wherever she is.
She's in a virtual background.
Exactly. I'm just making a quick note. We'll wait just another minute or so and see if we have anyone else joining us. I know Deb has a class this morning that is getting going.
Yeah, I was signed up for it, but I wanted to talk with you guys instead.
Sure.
Is hers going to be recorded? Can I catch it later?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out.
Okay, I would hope so. I missed the clergy roundtable yesterday because of all the news.
Me too.
Yeah, that will be archived without a
Yeah.
doubt. We actually, interestingly, we recorded, pre-recorded the clergy roundtable yesterday morning just to allow a little more flexibility for our production guys. And, you know, this was obviously before everything began erupting. And as we watched it unfold, we had the clergy team started text messaging and messaging with one another and saying, okay, we were in very different moods, you know, before all of this, and we don't want people to think we're being flippant or anything. And so we were trying to see if we could add some sort of introduction about, please know we did this before we knew what was happening. But instead we put a slide up before it started because we just didn't want people to think that we were being flippant or.
Well, your message this morning was right on target, and I sent you
thank
an
you.
email saying thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was, well, I'd written one thing and then, you know, you watch all that take place and you can't, there's just no way. And
Yeah.
Well, I was saying that when 9/11 happened, my husband and I were up north, and you glued to the TV when it's happening. But the next day we were so shaken, we went down to the church and sat and talked with the pastor and a handful of other people who just felt a need to be there and to be able to try to build a foundation under what was feeling like it was crumbling.
Yeah.
And so that's why I thought your message, I was so grateful that you responded right away.
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, a friend of mine in Dallas, he and I were talking last night, and that's exactly how we talked about it, was feelings like 9/11. It was just such a strange,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was watching. I really, really didn't.
I'll
No.
never forget 9/11 because I was chair of our church council in our little church in St. John's. So we only have one minister who happened to be out of town up in the North Boundary waters where you couldn't even reach her by cell phone. And I remember that the vice president, who fortunately was a retired pastor, and I quickly put together just a quiet candlelight vigil for the community. And it was just the right thing to do. But I thought about that last night when I was watching TV, and I haven't looked. I will watch the clergy roundtable, and I'm doing the reading, but I haven't done it yet.
Well, the book, I will say, is I believe is an excellent book. It was brought to my attention. I didn't come up with it and hadn't read it before, but I said we were talking after all of the things started happening, and I said, boy, this book is just perfect for, what we're doing. The subtitle is Healing the Faith of a Nation, I think, or something like that. And, and it's just ideal for what we watched yesterday.
Well, I read the first 2 chapters. How many chapters are you doing each session?
I know yesterday was 1, and then next week will be chapter 2, and then I think there may be a couple of ones where we double up. It's 6 sessions total. I can't remember off the top of my head how many chapters it has, but yeah.
Well, I thought the chapter 2, I told my Justice Committee members they should definitely read the book and check into the Clergy Roundtable. It's all about faith and justice.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I'm leading that one, and I'm looking forward to it, finalizing that probably tomorrow or over the weekend, as we get ready for that, because I think it is a really fantastic one. Hi, Sandy Hempstead. I saw you log on.
Hello.
And today we're global because the Lois on the beach is really Lois Warner in Guatemala.
Oh, hi, Lois.
And so it's
I
wonderful.
thought I recognized Lois.
It's wonderful to see my friend Lois. I think I saw Ken's hip walking through the room in the background there.
You did.
So
And it's
wonderful.
nice to see Rich Kirschner on a non-rotary call.
I can imagine. Well, as we get started this morning, let me open with a word of prayer. Let's join our hearts together. Loving and gracious God, as we gather our hearts, as we are mindful that when this world feels chaotic and out of control, that indeed you are the one who calmed the storms and said that you would be with us and that you walk beside us. And in this season, we are especially mindful that as a tangible reminder of that, you sent your child, Jesus. And so help us to live in ways of justice and peace and unity as a church, as a nation. And as we are together this morning, help us to reassure each other, help us to support one another, and help us to celebrate the good in our world today. And we trust and we ask this in your many names. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I just want to update you on some wonderful things that are happening as we kick off a new year. I was probably, like many of you, really ready to see 2020 come to an end and to welcome 2021. But 2021 hasn't exactly started in all of the ways that, in all the good ways I might have hoped. On the church side of things, we are, I would say on the staff side, we're really focusing primarily on the annual meeting, which will occur on Sunday, January 24th after worship. I think probably it will, we were actually working on this yesterday. I think it will officially convene at around 11:15 because what we have to do is finish one part of our Zoom and live stream and all of that, and then start a new one. So I think that's how that will take place. The bylaws require that you receive the annual report 2 weeks prior. And so it will go out in a special e-blast on Sunday. And it will actually have obviously unaudited, but a completed year-end financials for all three entities, the church, Precious Cargo, and Bargain Box, which we've actually never done before. So we're really grateful to our new controller, Maria, and to say she's working around the clock doesn't even come close. And so, but she's doing great work to provide what we've actually had in the past, just as a point of reference, is we've actually had, we formerly would close temporarily or provide a snapshot of the books in November, at the close of November, and then we would provide year end as best we could. We always kind of had multiple sets of numbers, and this way we have one set of numbers that represent year end. So I think that's helpful and much more accurate reporting. So we feel good about that. There will also be in the annual report packet the bylaw revisions that are being proposed. They have been through a tremendously lengthy and I would say very, intense in the right way process, very thorough process. They've been through multiple votes in the Long Range Planning Committee, the Executive Committee, and the Church Council. Basically, every time we changed anything from this fall, they went through each of those groups for a check. And so we will have those available. And then, of course, our slate of officers, and then the 2021 budget. We do something, I would say, fairly unique to this church, not unheard of, but unique. And that is the Church Council passes a budget, and then we institute that budget starting on January 1st. And then the congregation passes it 2 or so weeks later at the annual meeting, 3 weeks later at the annual meeting. And then we actually do the stewardship piece after the fact as well. And so, it's always kind of a little bit of a rolling process along the way, but it's always worked for us. And so we're taking a pretty significant increase in our budget this year. I would say it's both a leap of faith, but it's also out of necessity for the growth of our church and for what we're experiencing. For instance, a lot of it is based around how we communicate and what we communicate. And so we're creating an internal communications department with a communications director and people to carry out communications, because especially with pre-COVID and now in the midst of it, our communications have turned on their head, and so we are working on that constantly, and so that's part of it. And then, frankly, just the cost of things like sanitizing our buildings and upgrading and updating. There's just costs, what I would call real life costs. And so you'll see that budget as part of your packet. And so that all goes out Sunday evening. So be looking for a special e-blast that will say annual packet, annual meeting packet or something like that. That'll come out probably Sunday evening to allow us time to finish all of the detail that goes with that. Any questions about that or about annual? I'll talk about annual meeting in just a second, but that's the information part of it. The annual meeting itself will be virtual, and so we are working on the complexities of that. I spoke to that a little bit last month, in the sense that we will mail proxies as we do each year. Those will go out next week. And so you can fill out your proxy and return it. We always offer the opportunity for you to vote in person. So with a virtual meeting, we have the excitement of figuring out who has voted via proxy and then who in the meeting is still eligible to vote. And then,
You know, you could start rumors about the fairness of this election.
yeah, trust me. And then just because you attend the annual meeting doesn't mean that you actually have the privilege of voting. And just because everyone in your household is in the meeting doesn't mean everyone in your household has the right to vote, because they, you know, couples have, some are members, some are not, you know, blah, 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 blah. So God bless Megan Black and Tony Falco and Mark Harmon, who are working on this day and night. And actually, many thanks to Bill Robinson, one of our members, who, when I spoke about it last month, passed on a wonderful resource to me, and I've passed it on to them, and they are working on it. But it literally makes my head spin when I think about, wait, what? We have to think through. But I mean, you think about all the complexities, because every person has to have an individual vote to be counted. And we do want it to be a fairly fair vote. And so we're working on that.
Especially this year.
Yeah.
So Dawson,
Right.
we
Yeah.
had to initiate an online voting process during Rich's year as governor with a similar kind of, you know,
Right.
oh my gosh, how do we do this? Because we aren't getting people together in person.
Right.
And it worked out actually really very well.
Good.
It had the voting things, and then it had the detail in the election process. It had the detail of, you know, whether it was somebody's bio or whether it was a financial report or whatever it was, all in the same place. And it was very helpful. And we were all online after the vote. We had the vote end just before the meeting. So the, you know, the results could be shared, but you could do it either way.
Yeah. A question, Sandy. Did people have the opportunity to vote like a proxy ahead of time?
Yes, you could, because it was all virtual, you could vote from anywhere that you happened to be, as long as you had a laptop or, you know, a connection.
Right.
And as long as you were a person who was supposed to vote.
Right.
So we have the same kind of situation where a Rotary Club may have 5 or 6 representatives, but not all 5 or 6 can vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing for me, I'll be honest with you, the thing for me that has been complicating, at least in my head, is that really allowing the dual ability to vote, in the sense that someone can return a proxy, but then we have to, if you think about it this way, we have to
members off.
Yeah, we have to take away their right to vote in person at the meeting, which we do it every year at our annual meeting, but the clerk does it essentially at the door when you re-enter the sanctuary, and they have a process. The deacons have a great process, and they manage it very well. It's just all of a sudden the idea of we have to monitor that online for potentially a couple of hundred people. So that's the thing. Do you have, I'm just curious, do you have, Bill, I was paying you a compliment, by the way, before you logged on, thanking you for referring us to the group that you did for the online meeting. Sandy, do you or Rich have an example of how, would that still exist somewhere that you could send me just for a visual?
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things that we did that might not be applicable to the church was the ballots went out to each club ahead of time. And we had a deadline which we would receive those electronic ballots. And then on that particular day of the annual meeting, we counted those ballots and announced the results for each part that, you know, of the agenda that had an item to be voted on. So we did not have any, we were not in person. People who came on that day weren't really given a right to vote that day, because we had concluded the voting, I think, the day before.
But we could have concluded the voting during our meeting
Yeah, we
at a
could have.
specific
Yeah.
time. So people could have put in a vote. They could vote early, but they could also put in
Right.
a vote that day.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
the tabulation is electronic. So
Right.
nobody's actually having to count something manually.
You know, as I kind of processing out loud, which I know most of you well enough, you know that I process out loud. That I wonder about if mailing out proxies this year is actually helpful to the process. I'm not sure that it is, but I don't want to disenfranchise anyone from this process, especially in a year where we're taking a significant increase in the budget and we're doing bylaw revisions. But at the same time, I'm also not wanting, I just think I think there's potential for overcomplication that we might not need to be doing to ourselves. And so that, to me, now I'm speaking way out of school. I've not been involved necessarily in the discussions about how the meeting will take place. I've just guided, you know, the big principle, but I just think about, you know, what that would look like for different things.
Well, are there people that are not able to vote online, perhaps, that would need the paper?
Yeah.
So that would make sense.
I'm aware of 2 people in our congregation that don't have access. So, well, and actually, let me rephrase that. I'm aware of 2 people who don't have access. We have a list, I believe, of, and don't quote me on this, but I think anytime we do a significant email, like formerly when we did steeple lights, for instance, we would mail, I want to say it was like 19 people or something. I mean, like, we have an in-office list of people that we mail things to that are important, that we could certainly do that for. But, you know, there is, as I've discussed in here before, there is I believe a misnomer that our congregation doesn't have, or that there are some in our congregation that don't have access, and that's just simply not the case. For instance, I'm sorry, let me just anecdotally, 2 years ago, Moorings Park did a community-wide, the retirement community did a community-wide survey that their participation was like 98% or something. It was this astronomical number, and it was all online. They did no printed copies of anything. And so, granted, that's a very privileged community, but it also, I don't know the average age of their residents, but it also says to me, this is not an age-related issue. Our people have access to even, excuse me, Gay. 1 second, Bill, let me get Gay in here because I cut her off.
Well, I just wondered if everyone just having access, does that mean that people would be willing to do it? I know I'm old, but I have friends that have access, but they just won't do anything like that. They don't like to do things online.
I hear that.
An issue.
No, I hear that, and I am working on my increased sensitivity to that. I really am, because it is, I mean, part of it is an affordability thing, because it is just so much more affordable for the church to do that. And that's why at the church councils, with the church council's blessing, we switched to emailing the annual report, because just the mailing of the annual report to the entire congregation was costing the church over $1,500 a year. And we were saying, the staff said, okay, look, we can do this much more efficiently and affordably. And the church council, and started with the trustees, and the council said, yeah, we need to do this. And again, what we do when we're in person, and I was putting air quotes under normal circumstances, is we make paper copies available in the narthex for anyone who wants one, and we make them available on the day of the annual meeting. And then we have that list that we mail to, but otherwise we email it out. So yeah, so my instinct is always to say, I hear that that's not maybe your favorite way to do it, but it's the way we've got to do it for efficiency and affordability. But you don't want to, I know that sometimes I can be eager to move forward and I don't want to ramrod people. That's not a healthy thing either. Bill, I cut you off. What were you going to jump in?
A couple things. One,
Yeah.
we never get 100% of the people voting anyway. Our condo has 240 voting members and we average 134 to 150.
Yeah.
Even for the annual meeting. Also is our mailing database for like Steeple or Eagle. Actually, it's greater than the voting members too. So
right.
That database coded for separate mailing.
Yeah.
Okay. I think offer the courtesy of a paper ballot and it's available if somebody requests it, that you mail it out, put it online, give a date, and if it's half hour before the opening of the meeting, that's what it is, and roll with it. I don't think we need to over engineer it. And besides that, we're not at a 50.6, 49.4 issue.
No, that's an important point. And actually I appreciate that, Bill. Our moderator,
we're not using Dominion.
Yeah, right. And they haven't asked for a letter of interest either. And our moderator, Steve Bryant-Smith, is very helpful about that too. When I get kind of caught up in the details, he will often say, how many 5 to 4 decisions do any of our boards and committees make, really? And I say, that's a good point. And again, it is to me about ensuring, I do want to ensure that people don't feel excluded and know that they have that opportunity. And Gay, I think you really do raise an important point, is how do we, I don't want to use a violent image, but how do we combat the willingness to do it versus the ability to do it, and that's sometimes is the tension.
So Dawson, I kind of think you could, I'm sorry, Gay, do you want to?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
I really think you could send the paper, ballot to the people, the 19 people that you always send things in paper. And then to the other people, put in a link of a place to do their vote and tell them if they would prefer to do it in a written, to just call the church office.
Yeah, and we could certainly provide that paper ballot upon request and would be happy to. We're prepared to do that, but this is really helpful feedback. So I really appreciate that. It could just
be in a letter that just gets printed at the time. So how usually it's a little thicker paper and it's different. It could just be in a letter that comes back. It doesn't have to be so fancy.
Right.
Because it's not the main way that you're asking people to vote.
Paper request. Paper ballot request. I'm just making a note here. Pardon me. Go ahead. Okay.
Well, as I think back about my own comment, I realize that some of those people I was thinking about that might not want to vote online also might not go to the annual meeting.
Well, here's the reality about that, and you raise another good point. I think this has just flat out been said to me, or I've pieced it together. We really use the paper proxies to achieve quorum for the annual meeting.
I was just thinking that.
The physical bodies, and I'm pretty sure Rich has been there. I think Sandra has, I think Bill has, Gay, I can't remember, I'm not trying to call you out, but I'm just saying the physical bodies, and Nancy has, hi Nancy, Happy New Year. The physical bodies in the room for an annual meeting in a typical year may reach 75. And keep in mind, there's several staff people that have to be there. And, that's like everyone in the building is in there. And only a couple of years ago did I ask Wendy to start tracking the attendance just so we would know, because we had never followed that before. So a lot of times I think, this is one of those things that it's the proverbial, why have we always done it this way? But we just keep doing it. I think that paper proxies have really served to achieve quorum, but in a virtual meeting like this, it doesn't mean we wouldn't go back to the former way next year, but in a virtual meeting, I'm not really sure the paper proxies are serving us in the way that we might need them to. But you're right. I mean, it's a combination of helpful information is, people tend to turn out for annual meetings when things are not in a necessarily good place, when there's deep potential for decision. So I'm happy when there's not a lot of people there, when, I'm like, great, and so when it starts being a full sanctuary, I start getting anxious. So, so if there's not a lot of need for the proxy, because I actually wonder also that there may be increased attendance at the annual meeting, because it will be click the link after the worship service and people can be present.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking the same thing. And I was going to say that I really sincerely hope that after this COVID year is done, that we don't stop offering virtual participation, that everything, for example, the annual meeting could be a hybrid. You could have some people in person and some people online. And many of the educational offerings and church service, of course, has been for a while, but I think it's really been good.
That's what we're going to spend $275,000 for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are northern people to continue to participate.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I promise you all I didn't pay Sandy to say that, but that's a great sequitur into one other thing I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to share with you all some great news. You all hopefully received the letter from me and the brochure about our technology expansion and enhancement. We are starting to receive response from our congregation, which I'm deeply grateful for. But also on Tuesday, I received, on behalf of the congregation, a $50,000 commitment toward that campaign from very generous church members. And I believe the gift arrived yesterday. I'm waiting for that confirmation. But so we are, because Sandy, I agree with you wholeheartedly that both for the outreach of our congregation and for the ease of people who want to participate perhaps in multiple ways and in multiple venues, and God forbid, but if another pandemic or if we were to have a second wave, that wouldn't be the right term, but another wave of this virus or a different virus, that we would have the ability to adapt and be agile, that we could say, unfortunately, we have to be virtual again, but there would be almost no impact to the church because we basically flip a switch and every class, every concert, every worship experience is able to be virtual. Or if you live in Estero, Fort Myers, or like I do in North Naples, and just and Gay lives right across the street, and you don't want to drive in season traffic to get down to the church for a 1-hour meeting, then you've got people in the room and you've got people attending virtually. And so our most significant impact of this expansion is in the sanctuary, but it also includes Nelson Hall to outfit 1, 2, I think 3, if not 4 of our classrooms, so that they become essentially virtual teaching centers. And so people can be in the room, people can be at home or wherever. And I think it's exactly what we need to do in the future. And I will tell you, it's not, I didn't have that idea 9 months ago, but as I watched everything happening, I felt like we needed a strong online presence, but I didn't realize how expansive it needed to be. And
well,
so,
Dawson, when I think back to being on the board of missions, just engaging with our mission partners, like someone like Lois, you know, very, very easy to do over an online connection, much more difficult, you know, and trying to get everybody in the same spot is difficult. And then we also we never met in the summer. Nothing happened so much in the summer because nobody was here.
Right.
So, you know, you're trying to call people and trying to arrange a phone call, and, you know, it was really very cumbersome. So it typically didn't happen. And this would allow the, you know, the committees to work 12 months.
Exactly. And there's always a kind of a ramp up time that happens in the fall as people are getting back, and it happens very quickly, but it also puts quite a bit of strain on our boards, committees, and task forces, as well as the staff, that all of a sudden people are back and it's like, okay, we have to meet now. And yeah, there's kind of this fury around the fall, and then Advent, you know, Thanksgiving hits, Advent hits, and then season is off to the races. And you know, I think the opportunity for us to be really a year-round church. I find it interesting that the couple who gave this gift on Tuesday are staying in one of their homes in the north right now because of COVID. And I was kind of chuckling with them, and I said, you know, the great gift of this is because of your gift, you're empowering us to stay connected to you no matter where you are. So if you come back to Naples next week, or if you stay up there for another 2 months, we can remain connected. And, you know, and so we're a congregation that at least 50% go away for at least 3 months. And so
our attendance didn't drop off during the summer on Sundays, did it?
No, we actually in 2020 had the highest worship attendance in the history of the church, which is really remarkable. And again, I would never have thought, I mean, when the pandemic, when it became so clear that the pandemic was global and its impact, I just remember telling our leadership, like, here we go, we're just going to hold on and see what happens. And it actually ended up being an amazingly strong year. Not anything like we wanted, but we've been able to maintain, again, the strongest worship attendance, and it's continued into 2021 this past Sunday. Jen.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. First of all, as you know, I'm very supportive of anything we're doing to enhance our communications.
Yeah.
But I don't know that this is something that we need to focus on, but one of the added benefits is that we're able to reach out to people who are not part of our congregation. I share a lot of the links with my relatives or close friends who I think might be interested in. I'm sharing the daily meditation with my family, with my sister-in-law, my niece in particular, and sometimes the entire family, as I did today. But you know, it is a really important extra thing. Not that we need to spend money to do it for that purpose, but I think it's a plus. And I think that some of my Catholic friends are attending our church service because they really think we're doing a great job of bringing, you know, their faith and their expression of faith to them, which are not getting in another way. So I have to say that those are our pluses. Now, I don't know whether you intend to continue daily meditations and clergy roundtables when the pandemic ends, or if we're going to go back to an all congregation book study where we all have separate groups, or are we going to not have that daily meditation, which I hate to say, I think you created a monster. It's been wonderful.
I know. Yeah, no.
You know, I want to let you know that Megan reminded me late yesterday that I had one due this morning. And if you think that yesterday's activities in the world helped me write what I had to get to her by this morning, you're mistaken.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. Well,
I
so
think the phrase is there's no business like show business, Dawson.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will tell you, so I will confess that I didn't turn, I think I turned today's in at 9 o'clock last night, which breaks all rules. But I guess when you're the boss, they let you accept that. I just said, I can't not address what's happened today, it would be irrelevant. But you're sitting there with your laptop watching all of this chaos ensue, and I'm thinking, what do you say about? I mean, so Rich, I have deep gratitude and total sympathy for what you're experiencing, because Megan, while she was emailing you, she was emailing me saying, no, really, we have to get it in the system. I'm like, I know.
With 6 to 9 months under our belt, you can always pull one out and change the date, and nobody will know it.
Well, frankly, that was frankly my plan because my previous church, I wrote weekly or bi-monthly devotionals for 7-8 years. So I thought, well, I'll go find an old one and recycle. And then, we have the chaos of the Capitol. And I thought, well, I don't have that to rely on. I do want to speak to a couple of things you raised, Jen. I was making some notes while you spoke. So we are investigating some really cool software that I'm really excited about. That, how, and this answers are, to me, is connected to your reaching out comment, is, how we have people, you can go to livestream.com/NUCC, I think is how you get there. What we're looking at right now, and actually we set Tuesday at our worship staff meeting target dates of when we'll make the change. And that is that we will, by Lent, the start of Lent, which is mid-February, we will start directing people all back to only the website. So we will say, go to naplesucc.org to watch the worship service, because we're going to go with this software that will embed our worship service on the website. And then we're going to reframe the virtual gathering place. And this software, this company that we're working with, will allow, and basically the worship service will be extended so that you go from the worship service into kind of if you will, a chat room. And then let's say, for instance, I don't think I'm violating a pastoral care thing, but Nancy and Rich's, I think it was your son's mother-in-law had COVID. And so I was aware of that. This was back a while back. So let's say during the chat room, they shared that with me and said, we could really use prayer about this. This software allows us to then break off me with Rich and Nancy in a separate room, chat room that's face-to-face, and I can have prayer with them and record that as a pastoral need, and then come back into the room. And then, so Deb could do that, Sharon can do that, and there's ways to record pastoral care concerns. It's a much more church-friendly way of doing worship. Plus, I think so if you go to livestream.com, that's not really directing you in a way toward the church. It directs you out. And so when Brad, our director of production, discovered this and started telling me about it, I was like, wow, this sounds super exciting and like exactly what we need. So, and that's something that we could utilize even when we're back in person in some capacity. We're not quite sure yet what that would look like, but so I'm really excited about that. What we envision about the clergy roundtable, because we really enjoy it. And so what we envision is a hybrid model where, again, once we can be back in person, that we would have people in the room who want to be in the room, and then people watching online. And then we've talked about the possibility of like a Q&A opportunity. And you'll notice in the technology enhancement brochure that we are outfitting Beverly Hall. There's been a gift made to cover that. And so Beverly Hall is a really neat room that does in the round. And so we've talked about what, depending on the size of the audience, so to speak, what might it look like to utilize Beverly Hall once it's outfitted, because it's going to have all the same capabilities that the sanctuary does, and it's a smaller space and more intimate. It's not just, you know, you're not just watching, but really it might be about people kind of in the round. And so these are just brainstorms. It doesn't mean any decisions have been made, but I do envision that Clergy Roundtable would continue. And then talking about an all Lenten book study, we actually were having that conversation in clergy team on Tuesday. And we were talking about how do you do an online Ash Wednesday service with integrity, which we still haven't figured out. But what we talked about is having people at some point on Ash Wednesday drive through, and the clergy team is probably going to kill me for telling you this, but I'm just so excited about it. Drive through and get plants, small plants, to watch grow during Lent, that would grow, and then on Easter Sunday, you know, the idea that it would be bigger, and to find, and that would be a theme for the church about growing, and what are those themes, and to have a book that would complement that. And I mean, so because we were talking about what is something physical that our congregation can have that would be a common experience, even though we're physically separated, and things like that. So those are, again, some of the ideas that we're workshopping right now. We're also looking at an idea that as vaccines become more readily available, of having an in-person, socially distanced Vespers service for those who have been vaccinated. So it would be literally a show your card to get in, which kind of flies in the face of everything I stand for, but to give people an opportunity to be together once it's safer for them to do so. I'll be really honest, one of the more interesting aspects of that is for several of our staff that help make worship possible, they are younger and wouldn't be eligible for the vaccine, including your senior minister. And so, because I mean, really we're talking about, I mean, we've just said very simple, a sermon, some music, scripture, prayer. I mean, we're talking like 30 minutes, but just the idea of being together and then in our sacred space together, perhaps on a Wednesday evening after or before a clergy roundtable. But, you know, again, to try to move that proverbial train forward where we can at least offer something in person. So those are just some ideas that we're looking at that, again, as Sandy mentioned, have us in both worlds, virtual and in person. I'm not sure we would do the Vesper service online. We might, just because we're still figuring out a lot of our enhancement there. Just yesterday, they were running new cables and things like that, so which I was very excited about.
Dawson, on that thing about vaccine, I don't know if any of you saw it or not. At noon today, NCH opens up their shot appointment list at
You can't get through.
nch.md.com at 12 o'clock.
I did see that in the paper, but thank you, Bill.
I can't get through on the website. I think they're crashing, to tell you the
Well,
truth.
it doesn't open up till noon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us tried.
It might be worth an email blast to the congregation.
No, I appreciate that. And again, I think once we're able to, I have nothing to do with any of that, but I just have a sense that like once they can kind of figure out a better system, that we will get there. A couple other things, speaking of COVID, we have had, I think since the last time we were together, we've had two staff COVID infections that didn't come out correctly. And we are taking all precautions necessary. And so I know that all of you would be, but I just would ask that, for instance, one of those, actually the second one what happened yesterday. And so it requires a change in scheduling today for a meeting that I was due to be a part of. It's not me, but so it sometimes means we have to change things at the last minute. And I know you all would understand that, but I will say with the staff as large as ours and with as much people interaction as we have, I am pleased that in 10 months, we've only had 2. Our staff has been very mindful, very careful. I'm also excited to share that our first staff vaccination happened yesterday, and Sharon Harris Ewing was vaccinated. And so that is certainly something that we celebrate and are grateful for, and helps. She and her spouse were both vaccinated, so that's a good. So there's hope on the horizon. We are very eager about. And then this Sunday, I'm really excited for you to see we kick off stewardship. I know you're eager and excited to hear that. But our stewardship committee this year is co-led by Bob and Candy Nordland, and they have done a remarkable job of working out an online and virtual stewardship campaign, because again, we have to rethink everything. And so you'll have the ability to fill out your estimate of giving online. And but it's also they have produced a stewardship video, and you'll get to hear from various voices in the congregation about why they give and why they love our church. And the theme this year is love grows by giving. And you'll hear, so the halfway point of the stewardship season is Valentine's Day. And so they've been very intentional through all that planning. And so it's really remarkable to see all the tremendous, again, ability to just adapt and turn everything on its head. So you will see that during Words of Welcome on Sunday.
Dawson, I think Bob mentioned that it's an interactive gift card.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really more one-sided, Bob. You just fill it out. Excuse me, Bill. You just fill it out.
Yeah.
No, it's all secure and online for the first time. And there's a link that you go to that will be in the video that will be sent to people after it's aired in worship.
Yeah.
And then another thing that we're doing paper-wise, you can also fill out a paper estimate of giving, is when we send out the final 2020 giving statements for your tax purposes, it will also include the estimate, which we've never done. It will include the estimate of giving, so that if you want to say, oh, this is what I gave in 2020 and can compare it to what you plan to give in 2021, you have the numbers beside each other. And I think that will be helpful for people. And so we're trying
Dawson,
to.
Do you see us sending the quarterly statements out electronically now?
We're working on that. I think, again, that is, I've asked Maria, our controller, to work on that down, and Mark, our executive director, to work on that down the road, because again, I think efficiency, ease, I pay all my bills mostly online and get those bills paperless and all of those. And so it's easy for, I think, to keep track, but I know not everyone feels that way. And so what I've asked for is the ability for people to opt in, if that's possible. And if not, what would it look like to do that? But, one of the things we're working on right now is a system for people, or a plan for people to come by and pick up giving envelopes, because many in our congregation, that's still an important discipline. And normally we just put them out on a table the first couple of Sundays of the year, and people stop by and pick them up. But
Tied in with camps for communion.
Yeah, we're looking at that. We're also looking at just the office will be open from this time to this time if you want to swing by. I mean, we can always send them to you, but those things do
Yeah.
get expensive to send.
We can have a third ring to the circus on the first Friday.
Right. And circus is a good image. We are growing short on time, but I want to see, are there questions or things that I didn't speak to that you would like, anything, or you have questions that you want to ask?
Dawson, I meant to ask this yesterday
Yeah.
in the men's new chapters. Bill, what is your virtual background?
Oh, that's Graham Chapel from Washington University, St. Louis.
It looks so familiar, and I thought I've been there, but I couldn't place it.
Yeah, I'll show you another one here real quick.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I went to,
There's
Oh, wow.
there's the quadrangle in the springtime.
yeah,
And
Okay.
I've got some other campus shots, buildings that were actually on the right, in the middle of the building kind of juts out was the business school. And now the business school is 3 buildings a block long.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's buildings there now that are new buildings that were opened, women's hockey field and all that. But this is the countryside of the family. That's mother and daughter of a horse, 2 horses my son raises.
Okay. Well, it answers that mystery.
Yeah.
And Lois, if I could put you on the spot, how are things in Guatemala and with people for Guatemala? How are you all doing there?
Well, I can say that none of our staff has been tested positive. So everybody is staying safe. We are this week talking with scholarship students so that we can possibly change the way we are supporting some of our scholarship students, and maybe we will open our own school. They're at the Learning Center for about 20 junior high kids, because it is impossible for them to try to go to school on a bad smartphone with no internet signal. So those are kinds of they have so many challenges. So we're trying to change the way we work so that we can help them a little more. Today, Amilcar and Denise, and we have a volunteer here right now from Colorado. They're out installing stoves.
Wow.
So they're in a village. They went out yesterday and they'll go out tomorrow. They're doing 25 stoves. We are, like everybody else, just trying to move forward and stay positive and take one day at a time.
Mm.
But for right now, Ken and I are healthy, and our staff is healthy, and so we're really blessed.
Well,
Yep.
I-
Yep.
I told Lois this recently in an email that I think it was in December, I had a very vivid dream that we were in Guatemala and in some of the sites that I've been to and with them. And I said, I just decided that it was the Holy Spirit speaking to me and reminding me that life will return to normal and I will get to be back in Guatemala, one of my favorite places, and be able to take more people from NUCC and be with Ken and Lois and Amilcar and their team. And so I just decided to hold on to that promise, because we'll be back together and be back there.
We are holding on to that promise also, Dawson. I'm going to
Yeah.
hold it. Yep. In my heart, it will happen.
It will.
Yep. But I want to thank everybody at the church for their prayers and their support.
Yeah. Well, I can only imagine the extra stressors that this places on you and your team in Guatemala. I remember, gosh, it was last summer when we were visiting, and when you were talking about the lockdowns and things that they were having to do to try to manage it.
Yeah, and the numbers keep going up, and the government continues to not make decisions. And you know, it's like that everywhere. I can't even go there. It's not going there.
Gonna say,
Austin, I got a new theme. It's called Strength Through Stress.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. I was gonna say, Lois, well, you have to deal with it in a developing country, but we understand what that's like too. So
Yeah, right.
We're a
Yeah.
third world country now.
Yeah. And we have
Yeah.
CNN.
That's true, Bill. Yeah.
Right.
Oh dear. Yes, one step at a time.
Before I get into trouble, let's join our hearts. Gracious and loving God, we may be physically distant, but we are not spiritually separated. And for that gift, we are thankful. And as we end our time in this meeting and in this gathering, we lift to you people for Guatemala, Ken, Lois, Emil, Carr. We lift to you the people of Guatemala, knowing the place that they carry in our hearts. And we ask, oh God, that we would remain connected and generous and able to make an impact there, and that you would continue to send your Spirit to us, to guide us, lead us, and direct us into the future, just as you have in the past. And so continue to watch over us, to lead us, so that we might be the people in the church that you have called and created us to be. We trust and ask all of this in Jesus' name, the one who has come as the greatest gift. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you on Sunday, if not before. I think that's the next time I'll see everyone.
Right. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye,
Happy New Year.
Yep.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.